I never thought my own family would betray me like this, but I should have known. I was always the invisible one, the one who got pushed aside while my younger sister Emily was treated like a princess. Growing up, it was always Emily needs this or Emily deserves that. I was the responsible one, the one who sacrificed. When our parents struggled with money, I took on extra jobs to help out. When Emily wanted to go to an expensive college, I gave up my dream school so she could have the tuition fund. I did everything for my family, and they never noticed. But nothing prepared me for what happened last month. Emily was getting married, and I was happy for her. I really was. Until she made a demand so outrageous, so cruel, that it shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. She wanted me to pay for her honeymoon, all of it, and when I said no, she did something unforgivable. For as long as I can remember, Emily was the golden child. She was the pretty one, the delicate one, the one who always got what she wanted. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one. That's what my parents called me, but what they really meant was the one who sacrifices. I gave up a lot for my family. When I was 16, I started working part-time to help with bills because my dad lost his job. No one asked Emily to work, of course. She was too young, even though we were just 2 years apart. When college came around, I got accepted into my dream school, out of state, full ride. I was over the moon. But my parents sat me down and said, "Emily's tuition is going to be expensive. If you go, we'll struggle. Can't you go somewhere closer?" So I did. I stayed. I went to a local college, commuted from home, worked part-time, and helped take care of things. Meanwhile, Emily went to her fancy university, partied, and never had to worry about money. I told myself it was fine. I was the strong one. Years passed, and I built a decent life for myself. I worked hard, saved money, and finally felt like I was getting ahead. But then Emily got engaged. My parents were thrilled, of course. They started planning the wedding like it was the most important thing in the world. I helped too. I contributed money, helped with decorations, even took on extra work so I could give her a nice wedding gift. I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. Then a few weeks before the wedding, she called me. "I have a favor to ask," she said sweetly. "Since you're so stable and don't have a family of your own yet, I was wondering if you could pay for my honeymoon." I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She wanted me to pay for the entire honeymoon. Flights, hotel, everything. It was thousands of dollars. "I can't afford that, Emily," I said, still stunned. "But you make more money than me. You've been saving for years." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her no, firmly. I had my own life to think about, my own future. And that's when she lost it. She started crying, saying I was selfish, that after all Mom and Dad had done for me, I should be grateful and help her. My parents backed her up, saying, "Come on, it's just money, you'll earn it back." I stood my ground. No. Then, the wedding day came. And that's when Emily did something so cruel, so unforgivable, that it changed everything. I thought saying no was the end of it. I thought Emily would be mad for a few days, pout a little, and then move on. I was wrong. The wedding day arrived, and I was still trying to be the bigger person. I showed up early, helped set things up, and smiled even though I felt like an outsider. At my own sister's wedding, everyone was fawning over Emily, calling her the most beautiful bride. Meanwhile, I was running around, making sure everything was perfect. No one even noticed me. Then, just before the ceremony, my mom pulled me aside. "We need to talk," she said, her voice oddly serious. I followed her to a quiet corner where my dad and Emily were waiting. Emily was in her wedding dress, looking at me with that fake innocent expression I had come to hate. "We decided that it would be best if you don't sit at the family table," my mom said carefully. I blinked. "What?" My dad sighed like I was being difficult. "Emily doesn't want any negativity on her big day. Since you refuse to help with the honeymoon, she feels like you don't support her happiness. We think it's best if you sit in the back with the other guests." I felt like the ground had been ripped from under me. "You're kicking me out of the family table?" "Over this?" Emily sniffled dramatically. "I just don't want any bad vibes today." Bad vibes? I had sacrificed everything for this family, given up my dreams, my time, my money, and now because I wouldn't pay for her vacation, I wasn't family enough to sit with them? I was shaking. "Are you serious?" I looked at my parents, begging them to see how insane this was. But they just looked uncomfortable, like I was the problem for making a scene. "Don't make this about you," my mom scolded. "This is Emily's day." That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. For years, I had swallowed my feelings. I had accepted being second to Emily. But this was the final straw. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. You know what? Fine. Enjoy your little fairy tale wedding. And then I walked out. I didn't stay for the ceremony. I didn't sit in the back like some forgotten guest. I grabbed my car keys and left, ignoring the gasps behind me. As I drove away, my phone blew up with messages. Some from relatives telling me I was overreacting. Some from Emily calling me a selfish bitch. My parents? They didn't even call. I should have been sad. I should have been devastated. But for the first time in my life, I felt free. I had spent years giving to people who never gave back. And now, they had finally shown me the truth. I wasn't family. Not really. I was just a resource to them. Wallet. A tool. But not anymore. And if they thought I was done, they had no idea what was coming next. I spent the next few days in a haze of anger, betrayal, and something else. Clarity. For the first time in my life, I saw everything for what it really was. My parents didn't love me unconditionally. They valued me for what I could provide. Emily didn't see me as her sister. She saw me as a bank account, and I was done being used. I went completely no contact. I ignored their calls, their messages, and even the flying monkeys, relatives trying to guilt me. But then, a week later, something made me laugh out loud. Emily's honeymoon plans had fallen apart. It turns out she had already booked everything: luxury flights, a 5-star hotel, spa packages, under my name. She had assumed that eventually I'd cave and pay for it. But when I didn't, the payments bounced, and the entire honeymoon was canceled. She was furious. I knew this because she sent me a rage-filled voicemail, screaming about how I had humiliated her and ruined her once-in-a-lifetime trip. I listened to it twice just to enjoy the pure entitlement dripping from her voice. Then, my mother called. "We need to talk," she said in that passive-aggressive tone that always made me feel small. "You've made your point, but it's time to fix this." "Emily is devastated," I almost laughed. "Fix what?" She tried to steal from me. My mother actually scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. You should have just helped her out. You have more than enough. More than enough." That's when I knew. I wasn't just walking away from them. I was going to burn the bridge. I took a deep breath, steadied my voice, and delivered my final message. Let me make something clear. I don't owe Emily anything. I don't owe any of you anything. I spent my whole life sacrificing for this family, and none of you ever appreciated it. You used me, and I let you. But that ends now. I'm done. There was stunned silence. Then my mom snapped, "You're being selfish." I laughed, actually laughed. "Yeah? Well, maybe it's time I started." Then I hung up and blocked them all. That should have been the end of it. But of course, Emily wasn't going to let me go without one last pathetic attempt at revenge. A few days later, I woke up to a flood of texts from friends, co-workers, even distant relatives. Emily had posted a massive Facebook rant, sobbing selfies included, about how I had abandoned my family, ruined her wedding, and was now hoarding money, while she and her husband had no honeymoon. She even set up a GoFundMe for their dream vacation. I couldn't believe it, but instead of getting mad, I did something better. I took screenshots of everything: her texts demanding money, the honeymoon reservations in my name, the voicemail, where she called me a selfish bitch. Then I made a single post. Just to clear things up, Emily wanted me to pay for her honeymoon. When I said no, she booked it under my name anyway, assuming I'd pay. When I still said no, she threw a tantrum, kicked me out of the family table at her wedding, and is now begging strangers for money. Here are the receipts. Then, I attached everything. It went viral. People were disgusted. Hundreds of comments calling Emily entitled, spoiled, a scammer. Her GoFundMe reported and taken down. Even some of our own family members, ones who had always stayed out of the drama, took my side. Emily lost everything. And me? For the first time in my life, I felt free. The moment I hit post, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, vindication, and a little bit of fear. But mostly, freedom. Emily had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. And yet here she was, exposed for the manipulative, selfish person she had always been. I watched as my post gained traction. The comments were brutal. Strangers were ripping her apart, calling her a spoiled brat, a scammer, and worse. Her GoFundMe was shut down within hours, and people even started messaging her fiancé, asking if he knew what kind of person he had married. But the real icing on the cake, a distant cousin, someone I barely even knew, commented, "Wow, this isn't even the first time Emily's done something like this. She tried to get me to pay for her bachelorette party too." And suddenly, more people started coming forward. Old classmates, ex-friends, even a former coworker, all sharing stories about Emily's entitlement, her habit of using people, how she had always expected others to foot the bill for her life. By the end of the day, she had deleted all her social media, and my parents, oh, they were furious. First, my mother left me a voicemail in her classic guilt trip voice. "I hope you're happy. You've embarrassed this family. Emily is in tears. How could you be so cruel to your own sister?" Then, my dad tried a more aggressive approach. "You've always been jealous of Emily, haven't you? That's why you did this. We'll never forgive you for this." I listened to them both, smiled, and then deleted the messages without replying. Because here's the thing. They weren't angry about what Emily did. They were angry that I finally fought back, that I had refused to be their doormat. For the first time, I didn't care, and it felt amazing. Over the next few weeks, I started making big changes in my life. First, I went full no contact. I blocked my parents, Emily, and anyone who tried to guilt trip me. I even changed my number. Then, I did something I had always been too scared to do. I quit my job and moved. I had spent years staying close to home, always available in case my family needed me. But now, I owed them nothing. I packed up and moved to a new city, started fresh, and found a new job where no one knew me as Emily's sister. And let me tell you, it was the best decision of my life. For the first time, I lived for me. I traveled. I made new friends. I started hobbies I had always put off because I was too busy helping everyone else. And most importantly, I learned to say no. I stopped feeling guilty for putting myself first. I stopped shrinking just to make others comfortable. I chose me. Months passed and I heard little about Emily and my parents. But then, one day I got a message from an unexpected person. Emily's husband. He was leaving her. Turns out he had seen my post before their honeymoon fiasco, but he had been too in love to believe it at the time. But after living with her, dealing with her entitlement firsthand, and watching her throw tantrums over money, he realized, I was right. I should have listened to you, he wrote. She's awful. I'm sorry for what she did to you. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because I had already won. Emily lost everything. Her reputation, her dream honeymoon, and now, her marriage. And me? I had finally found peace. Looking back, I don't regret walking away from my family. I regret not doing it sooner. Because here's the truth. Some people will never love you the way you deserve. Some families aren't built on love, but on control, obligation, and manipulation. and sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away. So, if you're reading this and you've been the forgotten one, the used one, the one who always gives and never gets anything in return, let me tell you something I wish I had learned years ago. You don't owe anyone your suffering. You don't have to keep setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Choose you. It's the best revenge there is.